Welcome to the Hunting Beast Report, a live video podcast with Dan Infalt and host Jeremy Gillespie.
Today's podcast is brought to you by Stealth Outdoors. The off-season's a great time to rehab your gear, so head on over to Stealth Outdoors at www.stealthoutdoors.com to pick up some climbing stick wraps, cam buckle covers, platform cable wraps, or stealth strip rolls for all of your miscellaneous silencing needs. Today's show is also made possible by Hunting Beast Gear, innovators in mobile hunting gear and the designers of the Beast Sticks and Beast Stand. Check out the latest products at www.huntingbeastgear.com. And now, on to the podcast. Okay, we're back Tuesday. We're live. As always, we're joined by Dan Infalt, and today we got special guest Ron Stanford. Ron, how you doing? Ron, I don't know if I can hear you now.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Okay, good. Yeah. So how you doing, Ron?
Not too bad. How you doing?
Good. Good. Ron, we're going to talk to you about something crazy that happened to you. And the title of the show kind of gives it away, but you had I don't know if we can call it an accident. I'm going to let you take the story away, kind of set the scene. This was, about 10 years ago now? Tell us what happened.
Yeah, about 10 years ago. I was 16 and, avid bow hunter. While I was went out one evening, slept in. So I was rushing a little bit to get out to the woods, and so I went out, found a spot, got in my climber, climbed up. I was sitting there for a good hour or two, found a buck rub. Buck rub was underneath me, feeling pretty confident about the spot. And then, all of a sudden I look to the left, and there's a guy, two guys, guy and his brother. They're walking down the gully, and I'm like, all right, so I'll call my buddy. I'm on the phone with my buddy because they're across the gully from me hunting. And so I'm like, hey, man, you ain't going to see anything because there's two guys walking through, look like they're squirrel hunting. And
this is private land, right?
Yeah, this is private land, bow hunting only. At the time, there was only me and two other people I was friends with that were hunting the property. So I felt pretty confident because I hunted it the past season. It was the first year I hunted it. So I got pretty confident about moving around, getting mobile with it at a young age, and seeing deer in the area the previous day. That was pretty good. But so I'm sitting there. I look to the left. I see the one guy does like a commando move. So his brother comes up on the hill that I was sitting on, and he's coming down in line with him, parallel. And so the guy gets right in front of me. I'm like, all right. So I stand up and I look at him, and he looks up at me. It's about 50 yards away, but mind you, I was probably 50 feet up in the air from where he was at, kind of in the tree canopy. And so he pulled his gun up, and I'm like, oh man. So I put my arms up. I said, don't shoot. And then all I feel after that is like a ringing. Like felt like a firecracker went off right next to my face. So I was stunned, and I looked down, and my arm came up like this, and just went down. It was limp noodle, like it was all paralyzed. And so mind you, I'm in a climber, an older climber from the 90s, a V-blade climber, and I had my compound bow. So I sat there for a second. The guy came up. He's like, oh, man, why didn't you say anything? I'm like, call my dad. So he called my dad, and he was like, hey, I shot your son. My dad's like, you're kidding, right? And he's like, no, seriously, I shot your son. So he started coming back there in his truck. But so I looked down and I'm like, oh man, how am I going to get down?
You couldn't move your arm at all, or
No, not at all. Like from the shoulder down was completely paralyzed. It blew out the main artery in my arm and disconnected the nerve to my hand. So mind you, I was bleeding a lot. Like my whole side was blood. So I had to make a quick decision. So the dude's like, throw your stuff down. So I threw in my backpack and I was like, I'm not throwing my bow because I just got my bow saved up all summer. Getting this thing was like not happening. So like I tied it off with my mouth one-handed and I lowered it down. And I'm still thinking, and mind you, this is like a maybe 5-minute altercation before I got down out of the tree. So all this is pretty quick, you know what I mean?
yeah, you're pretty lucky already because arterial bleeding, you could bleed out faster than that in some cases. Your clothes might have actually been keeping you from bleeding. You had clothes over the wound, I would assume.
Yeah, hunting clothes. And also I weighed like 210 pounds at the time, and I was like lifting weights, so like kind of helped me out having more muscle in my arms at the time. But how I got out of the tree was I had to throw my limp arm underneath the bar and grab the bar, like my arm with my other hand, and then I had to jimmy myself down 30 feet. And then like the time I got down out of the tree, my two buddies that were on the phone, they came over and I looked at the tree. So there's blood from where I got shot at the top of the tree all the way to the bottom. And I'm like, oh man. And I'm completely calm at this point, like how I'm talking to you guys. So I wasn't like freaking out. And I looked at my arm.
You guys call 911 when you're in the tree or when you got down, or
when I got out of the woods, like halfway out of the woods, called the ambulance. So when I got down out of the tree, my buddy was quick thinking. He's like, hey, he took his shirt off. He's like, I gotta tie your arm. So he tied my arm, and I was walking out, and I was joking with the guy, you know. I'm like, luckily you're a bad shot, because you know it was
Jeez.
4 inches from my heart, you know what I mean. And so I'm walking out, and it's about, I don't know, I want to say good quarter-mile walk, give or take, from where I was at to my house, because the property was like kind of connected, you know what I mean. So I walked out of the woods and I got to the driveway, and I had to wait for the ambulance. It was a good 10 minutes before the ambulance came. And mind you, I didn't feel it at the time. It didn't like hurt initially, because like it was paralyzed, so didn't feel it. But when the ambulance came up, I got into the ambulance, and so I'm talking to the ambulance driver, no issues, you know. And so we cross over a main road, and I see my dad's behind me at this point, because he drove his truck into the woods. It completely passed us and didn't realize we were walking out. And so like I look at him like, you know, what's up? I threw up the like fake gang sign. I was like, Thug Life. And that ambulance driver started laughing. He was like, yeah, get that tattooed. And then so I got to the hospital, and at that time, so that was probably a good 40 minutes from the time I got shot and made it to the hospital. So it started to hurt really bad, like intense pain. So as soon as I got in the hospital, I was like, give me the mask. So they brought the mask and put me under. And so I guess I went under a 10-hour surgery. So they took a vein out of my leg and folded it in half like a tube. So like doubled it up and made that into an artery and then put that into my arm. So it'd still be alive.
So you got a section of the artery that was bad?
Yeah. They cut a section out, and they cut because you have extra veins in your body, and they took the extra vein out of my leg and then folded it in half like double layered it pretty much, and then put it in my arm, and then reconnected my nerve. And then so when you sever a nerve, it doesn't grow back real quickly. It's a millimeter a month, a foot a year. So it took like 2 years for it to grow back from here to my hand. And
So
even
could you use your arm at all, or was it just like you could use it but you couldn't feel it? Or
I couldn't use my hand at all, but I could use my elbow. Like I could bend my elbow. I couldn't feel it. Like actually recently, like a year and a half ago, I just started getting feeling back in the bottom side of my hand. But yeah, so it took good 3 or 4 years after that, because for that year or two process, like imagine when I got shot, I weighed 220 pounds. So during that time frame, I had to watch my arm go from normal to like kind of anorexic to kind of like just like skin and bone. So I was like, oh man, I cannot let that stay like that. So after I started being able to move it a little bit, I picked up my bow because it like mind you, still couldn't feel it. And like the time frame from like my nerve grew back, it felt like somebody was taking a knife to my forearm every day, like just constantly just like stabbing me right in my forearm. So that was like during the 2-year process of that nerve growing back, which really, really sucked. Don't wish that on nobody. And then I go through therapy and whatnot. But what really helped me out was shooting my bow, because my bow was set at like 45 pounds or something like that at the time. So I picked it up and I'm like, all right. Mind you, I can only feel like right where your pointer finger is and your thumb. That's like mainly like what I was feeling. So like I pulled it halfway back and it felt like I broke my wrist. I'm like, oh man, this sucks, but I did it halfway. So I'm like, all right, I knew I could pull it back. So I pulled it all the way back, and it was like a real like pins and needles feeling. Best way to describe it. And yeah, so I started shooting my bow, once, twice every day, and eventually it strengthened my arm. And then I got into like the fabrication field. So I was thinking it was like a 3-for-1, more physical therapy. I'm getting paid, and I got to learn a trade as I was getting paid, which is like no brainer. You know what I mean? It looked pretty good. So I did that, and it's still like I don't got like full function of it. Like, so like pretty much when I move my hand, I can't like move like I can move some individual fingers, but like the bottom two, they're like they move at the same time. You know what I mean? So that's basically out of all of it. That's what I've dealt with, but I'm not complaining. You know what I mean? It's better than not using
alive, really.
Yeah, because originally they wanted to just like cut my arm off, and because they said it was like a really high chance that it wouldn't even come back, And my dad was like nope, saving his arm. And yeah, so they did that vein thing, and it worked out. Yeah, in the long run.
We were talking earlier before the show, and you said the bullet's still in you.
Yeah. Yep. So I don't know if you can see it. So I got shot right there. And then at the time, it got stuck in the middle of my arm. So while they were doing the surgery, they didn't want to remove it because they already did 2 initial surgeries. And they said that like cartilage around like your ear will form around it to protect your insides. And then it'll push it to the outside where it won't damage anything. And so it's right here. I don't know if you guys can see it, but
So it's right on the, you can just, yeah, geez.
Yeah,
right on the
yeah
skin.
eventually it'll pop out. Because yeah, at least far as I know or have read, that it'll push its way out
They
eventually.
could probably remove it now because it's up by the edge if they wanted
Yeah,
to.
they probably could, but I'm not a big hospital fan. You know what I mean? So if it ain't hurting nothing, it can stay there.
You lose a lot of street cred when you get it removed too. You got a bunch of street cred right now.
Yeah.
I got a couple extra questions for you about the incident. So,
Yeah.
had you been hunting? You said it was private land. What's the story with this guy? Where did he come from? Did he have permission to, or is this a random?
So the guy was 35. His dad lived in the neighborhood, and he just walked in the woods with his brother to go hunting. And so he wasn't even supposed to own a gun either. Yeah, so he wasn't supposed to own a gun. He was trespassing, and there was something else. I forget.
Did you have a license?
No hunting license either. That was it. Yeah.
So what did they do to the guy?
Well, honestly, I mean, I believe in accidents, and I mean, if it truly was an accident, I didn't press charges, because I mean, the state could have picked it up, but I'm not sure if they did or not, because I didn't really get into that because I was only 16.
I mean, he must have been cited with at least something from the DNR, I would imagine.
Yeah. I want to say he wasn't allowed to hunt anymore. Out of the whole deal. I couldn't really say because I didn't really look further into it after, because like, mind you, I was in the hospital, and then like when I got out of the hospital, I was completely just whooped, just like couldn't really walk.
Mm-hmm.
It really took a toll on you, you know, like physically, after having 2 surgeries and getting shot. So like there was like a 3-month span where I might have got out of bed once in like 5 days. You know what I mean?
How long were you in the actual hospital for?
I want to say it was 2 days, if I can remember. 2 or 3 days. First day I was completely passed out. The second day I woke up. And then the third day, they were like, all right, you got to get out of bed. And then, yeah, I had a catheter. They ripped the catheter out. If nobody's experienced that, be grateful, because that's no joke. And then initially when I got out of bed, it like my legs felt like pins and needles. Like it just like hurt really bad to walk. It was pretty intense. So,
Yeah, I don't wish that upon anyone. I didn't get shot, but I had a pretty bad accident when I was a teenager too, and I got my spleen removed. I was in the hospital.
Oh man,
a couple days for that, and yeah, it takes. You're right. It takes a long time to get back to normal, because I had my spleen out like the middle of May, and I probably didn't feel right till August. You lose a lot of blood. It takes your your body a long time to regenerate your red blood cells and stuff. You just feel weak, and I don't know. I fell off that whole summer.
So who paid for all your hospital bills and stuff?
My dad's insurance. paid most of it, and then
So the insurance company didn't go after that guy either?
No, I don't think he had. I don't think he had anything to really go after. Yeah, I
Did
don't.
he
I don't think he
ever?
had.
Did he ever, any time after that initial thing, reach out to you at all or anything?
No. I've never seen him since the day I got shot. That was the first and last day I've ever seen him.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
You'd think you'd feel bad enough to go see the guy in the hospital or something.
Yeah. No, I didn't see him, but I mean, like I was telling you guys earlier, I believe in karma, so like during the court dates and whatnot, the guy had a leg infection, and he felt truly sorry for what he did. He was like, I got this leg infection, I'm just gonna let it go, and nobody thought anything of it. So 4 or 5 years later, I walk into this gun store, I'm telling the guy the story of how I got shot, whatnot. He's like, oh, no way. He's like, I know that guy. He's like, for the past 3 or 4 years, he'd go in, just like look at guns and whatnot. He's like, but he smelled real bad. I'm like, why does he smell real bad? And he was like, well, apparently he had a bad leg. This is what this guy was telling me. I'm like, okay, thinking what I heard from the court, I'm like, makes sense. And then he's like, yeah, they had to amputate his leg off, so they cut that dude's leg off. So I mean, if that's not karma right there, I mean, what is?
Yeah, that's crazy. So someone asked, and I think we talked about it before we got on, but maybe we didn't bring it up in the story. What caliber was the gun that this guy was hunting with? Do you know?
A 22 long rifle, and I
Okay.
actually wanted the gun. I wanted to get the gun that shot me, and they wouldn't give it to me. Yeah, that was out of the question.
What about so you talked about the recovery period, but maybe 3 months where you were real bad, and then it
Yeah.
sounds like maybe 2 years for your nerves to get back. It's been how many years exactly now, and what are you like
happened
today?
in 2013, so it would have been 11 years now.
Okay.
I would say a good 5 years to recover. I mean, I'm still like there's still like a muscle difference between like one hand and another. Like that hand muscle is like very hard to obtain. You know what I mean? Like I work with my hands every day. Like I'm a welder, fitter, assembler. I do weld inspections every day, and still ain't quite the same. You know what I mean?
And what would you tell people that are watching that this is a good time to have you on because the season's coming up, and safety is always a big topic, and sometimes it's overlooked. What would you tell people that are listening about safety in the woods?
Safety in the woods. Always make sure what you're looking at. I mean, point blank, if you're able to go out in the woods and pursue the game that you want, you should be responsible enough to know what you're shooting at.
Yeah. So from the other side standpoint, you can't control other people, and you can't make them be safe. So from your standpoint, is there anything that you could have done different that maybe you could have had a different outcome?
What I could have done different was stay in my hang on, like a couple hundred yards away.
And you even yelled to the guy. I mean, so you did everything you could, right?
Yeah, I yelled. And as soon as I said "don't shoot," he shot. It was like split second. Like as soon as I got "don't shoot" out, it was happening.
Was this early season? You talked about the canopy.
Second day of bow season.
Oh yeah, so all the leaves are still on.
Yeah, so it was the second year I ever got into hunting. I went out one time for gun season with my godfather. That's what initially got me into it when I was 10, but I didn't get into it real heavy until I was 15 with my buddy. And I shot my first doe the previous year. And then I shot another doe. I shot the first one with my bow at 20 yards, which was pretty sweet. And then I shot another doe with a gun. I do believe. No, I missed. Actually, I shot it in the ear, and then my buddy shot it. But I was hooked. So like that year, I had paid attention on like shooting nice deer because we seen big bucks. Like first year going out, it was like, I don't know, it was like God blessed us with just seeing humongous deer, and didn't wasn't able to harvest any of them, but got to see them. So like it was good memories. A hunt is, whether it's good or bad, it's still a good hunt. I mean, being in the woods and being able to do it is good enough just there, you know.
Yeah. What that's crazy that that happened to that. I'm shocked that guy didn't get in more trouble, or there wasn't a lawsuit at a minimum or criminal charges. But I mean, yeah, unfortunately we hear about this stuff. It seems like every year. I mean, not every state obviously, but somewhere in the US every year somebody's getting accidentally shot during hunting season. So it is a good reminder to be careful while you're out in the field.
Yeah, it's just getting too excited, and not paying attention to what you're really aiming at.
Contrary, there was a story back about, I want to say it was 5 or 10 years ago. It was a while back, but somewhere out west, I think it was Colorado or something, some old guy that had hunted his whole life, and I think he was like 80 years old or somewhere right around 80. He mistook a guy for an elk and shot him. And when he got over there, he realized he had shot this person, and they were way back, and he couldn't get help in time. The guy died in his arms, so I tried to save him.
Oh, geez.
Oh, wow, that's tragic.
It was completely an accident, and the guy was very remorseful. And they threw that guy in prison, and the judge told him, "You will never see the light of day again. You're going to die in prison for what you did."
Wow.
And that was a total, complete accident. And,
yeah.
And that's the kind of, and somebody at 80, I mean, if he shot me and killed me, I wouldn't have wanted him to go to prison. I would have wanted him to feel bad and be remorseful and for it to be an accident. But I wouldn't have wanted him to spend the rest of his life in prison, away from his grandkids, his wife. You know what I mean?
Oh, I agree. Yeah.
But
that's why I didn't press charges.
Every situation in every area is different. It's just a matter of how the law looks at in the situation. I mean, in your case, the reason that guy might not have reached out, if you know anything about law, is his lawyers may have told him, "You do not apologize, don't talk to him or anything," because if he sends you a letter saying how sorry he is, it's admitting guilt.
Right.
Because you would, you could have sued him for a lot of money for your pain and suffering, for the damage to your, like you said, it's affecting your work.
Right. Lost wages, all that stuff.
Yeah. Like my brother, when we were kids, got hit by a car. A drunk driver hit him. He sued that driver, and I mean, he got a ton of money for an injury similar to yours. I mean, he was pretty screwed up for quite a while, but he came back around. But he got off pretty easy. I mean, he should be very grateful. But he may not have reached out, not because he's an ass, but it might be because he's got legal advice not to.
Which makes sense. I mean, I don't blame him. I mean, if you shot somebody and went through all that, I mean, you probably wouldn't try to reach out.
It would be a lot harder for me if I shot somebody than if I got shot.
Yeah.
For me, hurting somebody else on accident and feeling responsible would just about kill me. That would bother me a lot more than actually being shot.
Yeah, I agree. I do agree. I mean, after that point, I mean, I looked at life a lot differently. Like, so like, even when it comes to hunting, like I won't shoot younger deer because, I mean, that's its life on this earth as well. I mean, it only got one life, and a year old, 2 years old, that's only 1 or 2 years on this earth. I mean, that's how I look at it. I try to go after like more mature animals that have more time. Just like anybody else. I mean, would you rather be shot like when you're 20 or when you're 80? obvious choice, 80.
Yeah.
But,
I had
Dan,
some
was
friends
gonna
I
ask
went
you,
to school with
Dan.
when I was younger. And they weren't big hunters, but they hunted a little bit. And they were brothers, if I'm remembering correctly. And they decided to go back and hunt a spot where the dad had took the older brother or something at one point and hunted with him in western Wisconsin up by like Black River Falls. And they were walking in the woods, and it's a very populated area. It's got heavy hunting pressure, and it was gun season opening weekend. And they go over this hill, and I think the one of them was like 18 and the other one was 16. Well, a deer runs past in this valley below them or whatever, and they both start shooting at this deer. And the younger one drops his gun and starts holding his face, and there's blood running between his fingers. So the brother goes over, and he's kind of gagging, and he's trying to tell him he's been shot, but he can hardly talk. He's got a hole right through his chin here. And the brother, they just dropped their guns, and it was before cell phones, because it was when I was younger, right? So he takes him to his car, and he remembers where the hospital was when his dad took him to town to hunt up there. He remembered they were next to a hospital. So they drive all the way to this hospital, and it's no longer there. They'd torn it down and rebuilt it someplace or something. And and this kid's bleeding out. He actually gagged up the bullet. It was stuck in his windpipe.
Oh, wow.
And,
he didn't even know how he got shot or anything or who shot him. And they stopped at just a random person on the side of the street and said, "Where's the hospital?" And the guy gave him directions, and it was quite a ways away. And the guy ran in the house. He was smart enough to take a look at their car, the plate and stuff, and gave him directions, and they took off. And then he ran in the house and he called 911 or whatever. And they caught up to the car with a helicopter and landed the helicopter in front of the car and stopped it. Got the guy out, or the kid out, put him in the helicopter, flew him to the hospital, and they were able to save him and stop the bleeding and stuff. And then they went and did a complete investigation on what had happened. And his older brother ended up being the one who shot him. And neither of their faults, but they're shooting at a deer downhill. There was nobody in the background, nothing like that. But the bullet, they found where it ricocheted off to 3 different rock faces and came back and hit him in the face. And that's probably, it was a high velocity bullet. So it probably, the fact that it had been ricocheted and turned around somehow, that it lost enough velocity that it stopped when it hit his spine and bounced back into his windpipe. But I mean, by all rights, it should have blown his spine out and killed him.
Jeez.
Yeah. There's a lot of velocity on a high-powered rifle. And, like, the difference, like, because I hunt Ohio and PA, so like I use straight wall in Ohio and high-powered rifle in PA, and it's like night and day. It's insane.
If I remember correct, I think the kid was shooting at 270.
270, yeah. Those are good deer rifles there. A lot of knockdown power on them.
Dan, you've had a close call or two, I imagine, in your time.
Yeah, I have, mostly with bow hunters. I used to like to travel through the woods in the dark without a light, and that got me in trouble twice. The second time scared me so much I'll never go in the woods again without a light. The first time I was guiding back in the early 2000s. I used to be a deer guide. I used to people used to hire me to take them out hunting, and I dropped the guy off on an island, and I was sneaking back out, and I come out of the cattails, and it was gray light, and there was a guy at full draw on me on the ground, and I just looked at him, he looked at me, and he let his bow down and stared at me, and he was a lot older guy. And I didn't even say a word to him. We just stared at each other for a second, and I just kept walking, a little freaked out. But at least he identified his target, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And what I didn't like that he had drawn on me, but I can understand you draw as a deer's coming, not when it pops out and it's going to see you. And I'm coming out of a swamp, a mile back from the road, coming from the swamp towards the road, not going out. I can understand the mistake, And the second time was the one that really freaked me out. I was hunting way back and navigating out, and it was pitch black, and it was probably at least an hour after hours. And I was walking with no light on. And surprisingly, I mean, a lot of people don't realize this, but if you're not in heavy tree cover, your eyes get accustomed and you can actually see at night pretty well. But when you turn the light on for 15, 20 minutes, you can't see again. But if you leave lights off, you see real well. And it actually works better than with a light on because you can see the horizon, you can see the trees you're heading to and stuff. Where with a light, you can only see what the light's shining on, and you kind of get a tendency to get mixed up. That's why I would do that. And because I didn't want to spook animals or let people know where I was and stuff like that, which now I think is stupid. But as I was walking, it was really silent out, and I heard this squeak like an arrow going across, sliding across a rest. And it just gave me this eerie feeling. It was in the tree above me. And I don't know that I knew it was an arrow sliding, but I knew it wasn't a natural sound. And it's probably one of the things that a deer hears when it bolts or glares at you, And I had my light in my hand. And I turned the light on and flashed in the tree, and the guy was at full draw on me. And I don't even know how he could see what he was shooting at. It was so dark. And the guy's response was to start screaming at me. Just like, who the hell walks through the woods without a flashlight? You're going to get your ass shot. And I didn't say a word to the guy. I don't argue with idiots with weapons. I just took off, got out of there. And there's one thing I got to thank that guy for. He taught me a valuable lesson without killing me. You can learn things from everybody. And that guy taught me. From now on, I walk out, I got lights all over me. I look like a Christmas tree. It is easy to, get yourself in a situation where you can get yourself hurt. It's hard to imagine people that aren't right that are out in the woods. You know what I mean? That either are so obsessed with deer that they'll shoot at things moving in the dark or, but there are people like that. You got to realize it. I mean, it's kind of like driving. You give your 16-year-old the keys and he doesn't understand that they let people that are on drugs, people that are crazy, anybody can get a driver's license. Anybody can drive, and they don't even need a driver's license to get a pair of keys. And it's the same thing with hunting. I mean, somebody's got to prove you're not capable of handling a gun to stop you. Just anybody can have a weapon out there. So you really got to watch out for yourself. In my opinion, you have to be looking out for number one. I mean, in some cases, like yours, there really wasn't much you could do. I mean, at some point you're just relying on God and whatever happens, but it's still hunting, even with stuff that happened to you, the close calls I've had, my friend. Even so, that's much rarer than just about anything else you can do. You're more likely to get killed at a baseball game. And driving down the street, you're like 100 times, 1,000 times more likely to get killed than being out on opening day of gun season. And everybody's so worried about getting shot on opening day. But odds wise, more people die opening weekend of gun season driving home from hunting than they do getting shot. But all you see is the stats on how many people got shot, because it's really number one, it's the shock factor for the news teams, and number two, it's their whole anti-gun thing to show guns killed people. But they're not going to tell you that 20 people died out of the 500,000 people that went hunting driving home or driving to there. They're going to tell you about the 2 guys that got shot. So it's really still safe. But safe or not, people got guns. You have to kind of have a plan for yourself and be careful and aware of what's going on around you. I mean, there's a couple of different kinds of people in this world, and I see a lot of people nowadays that just walk through the world with blinders on. There's also people that look at me like I'm highly paranoid. Everywhere I go, I got a gun in my pocket. I go in a restaurant.
I got one.
Yeah, there you go. And you got reason, because but I sit in the corner of a restaurant. I watch the door. I mean, I can't tell you, how many times I've been in a restaurant and you hear the restaurant 2 doors down from you got robbed, or this happened, or that happened, or, or you see something go on, and people have these blinders like, well, wasn't that freakish? It's not freakish, not in this world. People got to be aware of what's going on, whether you're hunting, whether you're just out for a drive, whether you're out to eat with your wife, whether you're at a store or a church, or a public event. You never know what's going to happen. I mean, I was going to a lot of the Trump rallies. I didn't go to the one in Pennsylvania. He got shot in the ear. Somebody died in the audience. I could have been there. You know what I'm saying? People really got to be cautious enough that when somebody's getting out of a car in your peripheral vision, that you look. If somebody's walking through the woods like you saw, and they got guns, I'm not looking around to see what else is going on. I'm kind of concentrating on them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you were aware of them, and you were paying attention, but the gun comes up as you yell, he shoots. There really wasn't a lot you could do.
No, it was a matter of 30, not even 10 seconds, I would say, when he walked in front of me. The time he drew up his gun, it was already in motion.
Dan, have you ever had any issues? Obviously, hunting a lot of wetlands, the swamps and marshes. You ever had any issues with bird hunters near you, shooting right next to your trees or anything?
Yeah, I've had duck hunters shoot the trees I'm in.
Yeah, that's
times.
it. Yeah, I've had them real close. When you're hunting those wetlands, it's something to watch out for. And then
I've had other problems too in the wetlands and the cattails. It's kind of bizarre, but in Wisconsin, they've got this huge long duck season, but for whatever reason, they have to have duck season open during the little 9-day gun season for deer. And they're the only people in the woods that don't have to wear blazed orange. They can wear camouflage. And you got them hiding in the cattails where the deer are hiding. And you got guys doing drives in the cattails, shooting at deer and stuff. And I have had a couple confrontations with duck hunters where they'll stand up and go, "What the fuck? You're shooting right at me." Or you're not, but you're shooting at a deer. But I mean, you don't even know if they're out there or not. And I was in a tree one time on an island, and I saw two guys working their way through the cattails. And I had been out there since morning, since first light, before daylight. And I had no idea 200 yards from me there was duck hunters. I mean, there's quacking over, but I didn't know if they're ducks or if they're further off hunters or what. I wasn't paying that much attention to duck hunters. You know what I mean? I was kind of isolated. But I'm watching these guys because I'm thinking they're going to kick up a deer or something. And they did. They kicked up a real nice 8-pointer and just started unloading on it. And then there's all this screaming and stuff. And a guy stands up and he's right in line with the deer. And they killed the deer like 10 feet from this guy in the boat.
Oh, wow.
And they went over to their right away. They got nice. You know what I mean? There was yelling at first, but I think the yelling was probably just to let them know that they were there to stop shooting.
Sure.
But it ended up, I mean, miles back there, those guys ended up loading the guy's buck into their boat and boating those guys out. Even though they almost shot them. But who's at fault there? I think to some degree, our state is. I mean, you got the whole freaking fall to duck hunt. Why do you have to mesh it at the exact same time you got gun hunters out there when gun hunting season is so short?
Yeah, or make them wear blaze orange at least or something.
Right.
Yeah. Dan, you wanna wrap up there and do some questions? We got a few questions. No Ashley today. If anyone hasn't noticed, Ashley was busy tonight, so I think she'll be back next week though.
Okay.
Before we get into questions, I want to say, Ron, thanks for coming on. You can hang out for the questions too if you want, but good time with the seasons opening up to have a story like this on and to see how easy it is to, for people that are unsafe or this guy not doing his due diligence or whatever, how things can go wrong real quick. And especially on, it's even crazier that it was on private land. This guy was trespassing and stuff. So Dan, you brought up a good point. You got to be your own advocate and be your own safety police out there. And even then things can still go wrong, but it's good to always be hyper alert. So thanks for coming on, Ron.
Situation before it unfolds.
Yeah.
I appreciate you coming on, Ron.
Yeah, no problem.
I know it's not the easiest thing to talk about sometimes in front of a crowd. You'd probably rather talk about the deer you've shot and the fun times, but it's kind of a bizarre thing, and it's a good story for people to hear. So I appreciate you sharing it.
No, thank you for having me on here. I appreciate it. It was nice talking to you and whatnot.
We can start with Dan, but Ron, if you got something to add here too, says Ernie Barry wants to know, what bow holder do you use that is attached to the bee stand, or do you use a bow arm that screws into the tree?
I don't use a bow. Oh, my bad.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say I personally don't use a bow hanger. It gives away a lot, especially like my area is high pressure, so making that movement, I've spooked a lot of bucks doing that. The best way I've found in my scenario is I have my bow on my lap at all times, have like my stuff on like a lanyard right here. But the odds of you getting busted, of you picking your bow up and keeping it in line with your body is slim to none.
How about you, Dan?
Yeah, I kind of have the same philosophy, not on purpose though. It's just that I can't screw anything into the tree, and I usually hang it on a limb or something. But I just move real slow. I'll get it or whatever. But I usually, probably I want to say 60%, more than half, I'm holding the bow. But if you do like the bow holder on the stand, the 3D printed ones I think are the best. I think, is it Genesis 3D?
Yeah.
Yeah. They make some good ones that a lot of people rave about. I don't personally use them, but I know people who do, and they say that guy makes some good stuff. So
Yeah, he seems to make a lot of good products. I know several guys, and I've done it a few times. I don't film every time I hunt. I should, but I don't. A lot of guys hang those 3D clips like right off the base of their camera arm too. So that you kind of get double duty there in states where you can't screw into the tree. You can.
Yeah, some of my homemade camera arms that are really heavy duty, I have built-in bow holders on the end of them.
Yeah.
So if they're strong enough to hold up the bow and the camera.
Yeah, like I said, a lot of those ones that I'm talking about, they put them on the first segment right off the camera arm base, so it's not way at the end where it's dragging the camera and stuff down. We got a lot of members on tonight too. Let's give a member shout out real quick. We got Trout and Morels, the Deerminator. Big fan of that name, Deerminator. I like that one. Wisconsin Bowhunter, Brian Griggs, Tim Crane, Ernie Berry, Adam Ursulak, Zeke Outdoors, MKEMM, Garrett Beckman, Happy D, Chris Ott, Public Land Menace, Joshua Vaughn. Dan Joshua Vaughn sent in a $10 super chat. So thanks so much for that, Joshua.
Appreciate that.
Mike Feaster, LM, Jimmy Gammons, and if I missed anybody, it's because you just joined. And don't take it personal. I think I got everybody though. Let's see what else we got here. Yeah, Brian Griggs says hello, and I know we had one or two more here. Dan, let's talk about this real quick because I did see an article about this. Molly Dog posted, not really a question, but it says EHD is ravaging several counties here in Indiana. Never seen so many dead deer in my life. Rivers and creeks are absolutely full. Have you seen any of that? I saw an article or something or maybe a social media post.
I didn't hear about it, but I know that when I was in Iowa last year, it was crazy. There was dead deer laying all over the place. I found several dead bucks, and so did Scott Buckley. Scott Buckley found a ton of them. A whole bunch of his up and coming deer on his private farm were dead. The ones that he was waiting for them to mature and stuff. That could really wipe out some areas.
Yeah, it sounds like Ohio. Have you talked to Josh lately? I wonder. I don't know exactly.
I have, but he hasn't said nothing about. You mean Josh Talker?
Yeah.
I talked to him just yesterday, and he didn't say nothing about EHD.
Maybe it's not in his neighborhood.
He's already got a kind of a low density around him.
Sure.
There's some big bucks there. I mean, it's good hunting, but it's a lower density, in my opinion. But he didn't say nothing. He's in kind of the southwestern corner.
Okay. Chris Ott says, I must have missed this, but why was he aiming up so high? The guy was, or claimed he was squirrel hunting, correct?
Yeah, the guy assumed I was a squirrel. Mind you, I weighed 220 pounds at the time, and I was in the old school. Yeah, old school climber, And I don't know why that was all on him. It was like one fluid motion. He looked up. As soon as he looked up, there it was. And
it seems even crazier to me because not that I'm an avid squirrel hunter, but it's a small target, and even with a scoped rifle or open sights, you got to take pretty deliberate aim to hit what you're aiming at. It's not like a shotgun. Not that this would be better, but you could almost forgive it if the guy was grouse hunting and he thought it was a grouse and, hip shoots or something, but squirrel and a precision shot, kind of hard to believe.
My thought is he probably didn't actually think he was a squirrel. I think he probably is the kind of guy who wasn't really an avid hunter. He liked to play with guns, and he was probably walking through the woods shooting that crap. And he saw something move and just would take a shot. And he probably would have shot another 5-10 steps at something else too. You see people like that. I mean, there's certain, a hunter, you see, and that's what we're thinking as. We're hunters.
Right. We're
thinking like hunters. But a guy that just goes out hunting, he's probably not even hunting anything specifically. He's probably just walking through the woods shooting stuff. I mean, he didn't have a license. He's not obeying property lines. He's just carefree walking through the woods shooting that crap. That's where accidents happen. And I'm sure he didn't mean to shoot him, but that's how you have accidents. Because hunters like you and me ain't going to have accidents like that, because we're going to identify that squirrel. We're going to be aiming for right behind the shoulder, or we're going to aim for the head to save the meat. But we're going to aim for a spot, and we're going to look for that squirrel and try to get a good shot. And if it's half hidden, we're going to wait for the shot. So I don't really think he thought he was shooting at a squirrel. I think that's a good excuse so he doesn't get arrested or whatever.
Sure.
But that's what are your thoughts on it, Ron?
Sorry, hold on one second. My girlfriend just walked in the door.
Hi, girlfriend.
Hi.
My thoughts. Sorry, I just lost my whole train of thought.
I was saying, do you think the guy really thought you were a squirrel, or he was just out shooting stuff?
To be honest, I don't think he thought I don't think he thought I was a squirrel. Like you said, I think he was just out there random, just shooting at stuff. And honestly, when I got shot, my first thought was all right, this is it. I'm done, because I thought I was going to get shot again. Because typically if somebody shoots something and it's still alive, it's getting shot again. So that was my first thought. I'm like, all right, this is it. About to meet God. I was like, this is a good ride. And no, he came up and was said what he said, and I was like, sweet. Still made it.
Yeah, this is crazy. Still, like I said, hard to believe. Bomad Outdoors says, Dan, what did you end up doing with the deer you hit with your truck? Your truck's getting pretty beat up. You have to start. You're gonna have to start scratching marks for deer count like people do on their guns.
Yeah, well, then I'd be a ball of rust, because I'd have too many marks on my truck.
Right.
It is like a pinball game going to work at 2 a.m. It really is. The stretch between my house and the expressway, I mean, every morning I'm dodging deer. Literally every morning. It's insane. But I didn't pick the deer up. I left it there. I did not find it when I hit it. When I hit it, I sailed past it. I did stop, get out, look at my front end, and I walked back up the street for about 30 or 40 yards to see if the deer was there, and didn't see it. And I think I just stopped short of where it was and went back and got in the truck. And the next day I drove back to kind of look to see if it was there, and it was. And what was odd was you could see, and if you watch back on that video, you can see the outline of my bumper in the body of the deer. You can see where it impacted it. It hit it so hard that it left the impression of the bumper into it. But that deer was so tall that it should have went over my bumper and took out my plastic grill and just totaled the truck. It should have. But for whatever reason, it seemed to be running super low and super fast. So I think it was on the other side of the road from where it normally lived, because there's houses and stuff over there. And I think when it heard the truck or saw the truck, it tried to make it back to its side of the road. And I think it was running really low and hard, fast. And it was just a couple feet off the ground with the body or something, because it should have really took out my grill, my radiator, everything, but it was below it.
Yeah, you still got a metal bumper. I hit a deer, well, it's been probably 2 years ago now. I got a Tacoma, and it's got a plastic bumper, plastic grill, everything's plastic now. And I only hit the deer going maybe 35, and it did like $5,000 worth of damage. So Make trucks great again. Metal bumpers.
If I took it in, I would have got a lot of damage. I mean,
Yeah.
the bumper's destroyed. There's a bunch of cracks in the plastic and stuff around the bumper, the framing and stuff. But I mean, that's just kind of like Ron here. I mean, having that bullet in him, it gives him cred. I mean, the bumper gives me cred, right? Gives the truck cred.
That's right.
It's like a truck scar. It's a man truck. Man trucks have man scars. You know what I mean?
That's
so it's like
it gives it
I go down the street and
character.
I'm showing off my scar. I got to get that symbol down that Ron has. Whatever it is.
That's right.
That one. What's that symbol, Ron?
I don't even know.
Dan, you need to make your own, like antlers or something.
Just throw it up.
Yeah.
That's right.
Crazy.
No, I did not take the gear.
No, that's that was a trophy, Dan. That was a nice buck.
Michigan 11-pointer.
That's right. We got someone else in the chat for this episode. Surprising, says Pappy D says, my son was shot at 16 years old. The Coast Guard was involved in the rescue. He eventually lost his leg. He was shot by another 16-year-old while duck hunting. So,
Oh wow.
Yeah, this stuff happens. It doesn't say any more of the details, or if it doesn't, I haven't read down far enough.
I wonder if it was an accident in a boat or something, because it's kind of like shooting him in the tree. I mean, ducks are up in the air,
right? Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Crazy things happen. Dan Mosier said, this is back to a buck tactics question. Would you suspect a mature buck to have multiple bedding areas in a 1 mile stretch along a tamarack swamp that transitions into cattails, or multiple bucks bedding there?
I would assume multiple bucks are bedding there, and they're bedding in a bunch of different spots in there.
Yeah, tamaracks,
the best ones.
Tamarack
spot.
Swamps, in my experience, Dan, I don't know about yours, a lot of bedding possibilities in there. If it's any size, the tamaracks are prime bedding areas, seems like.
Usually what I find is the biggest stuff is on the edges. You'll find beds everywhere in the tamaracks, but there'll be certain features like a point or something, or a little subtle island or something that'll hold the biggest stuff. The big bucks don't just seem to bed all over the place. They will pick the best beds, the ones that are safest. It's like they learn over time with age and with the experiences where the best spots are, and they kind of hone in on them. And all the smaller deer will fill the void,
Yeah. No, so good tips there. Even though there's lots of potential bedding, it's not all created equal, and that's kind of Dan, you talk about it a lot, especially when people are early on finding beds. It's that kind of detail orientation that separates you from just finding a bed to finding the bed or set of beds and setting up on them. Random thought just popped into my head. So we had Bronson Strickland on a while back from the MSU Deer Lab. Bronson emailed Dan and I the other day, and they have a survey out right now. So if you go to MSU Deer Lab on social media, either Facebook, Instagram, maybe right on their website, but I know on the social media for sure, they're having a survey about moon phase or moon position data. Do you think it has an effect on buck bedding behavior? And if so, they ask you to quantify it. Like, do you think moon phase gets them up a half hour earlier, an hour earlier? There's a bunch of questions like that, but they're trying to get public input before they examine, or maybe in conjunction with examining their data for moon phase and moon position. So if you have time, stop over and take the survey.
That is kind of cool, because when we had Bronson on, Bronson was asking us about some stuff to research, and Jeremy had brought up the moon phase thing, and we both gave him some ideas on that and helped him along his way. And now I see he's doing a full-blown thing on it. So that's going to be kind of cool, especially for us, because we kind of had some input in it.
Yeah. So when we had him on, we did talk about moon phase, so full moon, new moon, stuff like that. And he said they had done some preliminary work on that and didn't see a correlation. But I think because of our episode, Dan, we brought up moon position, which a lot of people, Hunting Beast Forum, talk about, moon, that's moon overhead or moon underfoot, or what people call red moons, major, minor times. It goes by a lot of different names, but they hadn't looked at that.
It seemed like he hadn't even considered it. I don't think he knew about that.
Right. So they're going to look at that now. And Dan, we had some input, like you mentioned, about what conventional wisdom is there, anecdotally at least, about how moon overhead, during prime time, so dusk and dawn, can maybe accentuate the activity. So they're going to look into that, and they want input from the public. So if you get a chance, go ahead and take that survey.
Yeah, we're hoping to have them back on after they get some results from that.
Yeah, that'd be good. I'll be curious to see what they find. Dan, Devin asked a question for all of us. Have you, let me see. No, I'm reading this wrong. How would you deal with an angered state land hunter, or have you? I had a man walk up to my stand and ask if it was his stand during a morning hunt at 8:30, and he said it was his stand. So, Dan, what do you do if you get somebody that's giving you a hard time in the woods on public land?
I am almost always the person to back down, say I'm sorry, and walk away. It's not worth arguing or fighting over. And that's number one, is that you're getting out of there safe. Like I said, you got to kind of keep in mind who you're dealing with. It's kind of like road rage. I mean, it peeves me beyond what you could imagine. When somebody cuts me off, my wife will reach over and beep the horn for me. And she'll be like, be a man. You let him know he cut you off. I'm like, I don't want to let him know. Right. I really don't want to get a shootout because this guy pulled in front of me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and in the woods, if somebody wants my tree, or he thinks that's his spot, hey, it's your spot, buddy. Sorry, didn't know you were hunting here.
Yeah.
Let me get out of here. I'll try to get out of here without spooking the game for you. And I'm like that because of a couple of reasons. Number one, safety. Number two, I don't, maybe it is his spot. Number three, if that guy's hunting there, I'm in the wrong spot. I want to go to the spot that has nobody going to it. Literally, I find the deer, when I find mature bucks, I'm in a spot where people rarely go. If I'm hunting spots where I'm trying to be the first one there, or like, I got to get here before the pressure gets here, that's never where I kill the giants. I mean, I might kill good bucks there. You might kill a 2 or 3 year old buck in a spot like that. But whenever I kill a giant, like a 5, 6, 7 year old buck, it's almost always in some awkward spot where nobody's figured it out yet. And once it's figured out, it's over. You got to go find that new crazy fat girl spot. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And people just don't seem to get that. And if somebody else is hunting there, hey, it's all yours, buddy. That's just one more spot I can cross off the checklist. I ain't hunting there no more. And it's safer that way anyways. What were your thoughts on it, Ron?
If I see somebody walk by and say I'm hunting public land, I'm gonna back out and leave, because chances are, I've had this happen numerous times actually. I don't know why, but I'm real big into hunting, so like where I'm at, usually there's deer there. You know what I mean? Because I'm constantly in the woods, so like I have a lot of people that they'll just pop up randomly no matter where I go, but I'll just leave and go somewhere else. I have a lot of spots I've walked, and it like example last year where I hunt in PA, because I like to be mobile. I really don't like to leave too many stands in certain areas. You know what I mean? So I drive that 1.5 to 2 hour drive. I see a ground blind exactly where I wanted to hunt. And that's where I knew where a big buck like usually come down at. And I just left. I was like, good luck, dude. There's some big deer coming. They come down out of that field, and I was just good sportsman about it. And that's all you can do. I mean, if someone's there, somebody's there. I mean, I personally don't like to be within a couple 100-yard radius of other hunters. I feel like it lessens my chance in a way. Sometimes not. I mean, you could benefit from it if you know the property, because like I've seen numerous deer setting up, because I hunt a lot of property with other people as well. So like I'll figure out where they're at, and I'll just go to the back door of that, and I'll post up on the back door, and as soon as they walk in or make their way around or something, all them deer are out. especially with the wind. Like if you got the wind in your face and they're upwind from you and there's deer in between, they're going to get up and walk. They're going to wind bump you, and they're just going to walk out that back door, and that person will never see them while you've seen all of them leave. And then that's how I pretty much will play high pressured areas. I've seen a lot of big bucks doing that. Just use the other pressure to your advantage. But like I said, you got to know the property. If you don't know the property, probably ain't going to work out real well. If you got a season or two there and you see how deer move, you got a good chance. Because I try to go off like if the sign's there, if that buck track that I'm looking for isn't like really in the vicinity, I might run a camera and see if one's there. But I try to run like 3 cameras within like 100-yard radius, because you'll miss a lot. Like 50-yard difference could be having 20, 30 bucks on cam and having nothing. That I've seen that a lot too.
Yeah, I think in summary, Dan, I think both guys got the right approach. It's not worth it, and it's public land, right? Like I'm sure for everybody at some point the shoe's been on the other foot. I've walked in on I've had guys walk in on me. It's like nobody's doing it on purpose for the most part. Once in a while you get the wild guy that's got an attitude about it or whatever, but I think that's the exception, and I'm glad it is. I think most hunters are pretty respectful people, so that's good. Dan Trout Morels wants to know, how's Rat Slayer liking the new Prime bow, and how's the new car? I'm assuming they're talking about the Sebring.
The Sebring's running great now.
Good.
I got a new engine put in it again, and it's running real good. I don't use it very much though. It's kind of a girl car, But
yeah, Carol.
Carol. Yeah, it's just for an extra vehicle to run around. I like the truck, but it's running fine. Rat Slayer and his bow. He loves the Prime bow. As a matter of fact, he had some words with me the other day, and he said he doesn't like being called Rat Slayer.
Oh, okay.
He said that to me before, and I've always just shrugged it off. But he was like, "Man, I'm a grown ass man now. You keep calling me Rat Slayer. I haven't shot a rat since I was a kid."
Yeah.
And, he said, "I need a new nickname." So I was nosing around, and I ran into one of his coworkers who told me that his nickname at work is Prime Time.
Prime
because
Time.
He's got the new bow and he's bragging about it. So
okay.
It's going to become Prime Time, and I don't think he quite knows that yet.
Yeah, yeah.
He might like Rat Slayer a lot after that. So
we might have to get some comments in the chat. So if you got to vote for what Jamie's new name should be, maybe we'll take a poll. We got 1 or 2 more here. Let's see. Yeah, I lost them. So I need Ashley. Now I'm staring at the questions again. Dan, while I'm looking, what are you doing to get tuned up for the season here? Fast approaching.
Well, I had an issue with my arrow flight. For whatever reason, I couldn't quite get the bow tuned perfect, and I was struggling with it. And what we came up with was that I was about 25 grains too light in the front end, and that's what was causing the problem. So I got to go up to 125 grains in the front. And the trouble with that is I got like 50 packs of 100 grain broadheads.
Sure.
So I tested it with target tips and it was shooting really good. All of a sudden I started blowing up arrows again. And, it wasn't that I was shooting bad. It was just a little bit of wobble. I mean, I was still shooting really good on the targets and stuff. But I would just see in the longer shots, you'd see the tail end wobble a little bit. But then when I went up to the 125 grains, my patterns went from like this at 40 to like this. And so obviously it was causing some issues. So what I did for now is I still want to use the broadheads I was using. So I took a dozen of my arrows that weren't made yet and I put I made some weights, and I put them in the inserts from the back end. What I did was I machined down some target tips till I had a shank that was 25 or 30 grains, and I screwed it into the back, Loctited them in, and put the inserts in, or had Forge do it, Steve Bagel, and so now they're already 25 grains heavier. So I haven't shot them yet, though. I got a dozen arrows sitting in the truck. I just got them back today, but I'm sure they're going to fly great because the target tips did at that weight. So
perks of working in a machine shop, huh? Custom fabricated solutions.
Right. I was tempted to make brass inserts that weight, but then you got to kind of keep programming until you get the right weight. It was kind of easier to just cut off target tips.
Yeah, stick them in the lathe and.
Yeah.
We did get another super chat from Bomad Outdoors, so thanks so much, Bomad.
Thank you, sir.
That might be it. We got a dang no Ashley comment.
Yeah.
Brian Griggs, Jeremy, have you ever had someone walk up on you in a place you thought no one knew about? Most of my walk-in encounters, and Dan, I'll be curious to see how this goes for you. The majority of them actually have been in Kansas during the rut. And I think part of the reason that is because most of the properties in Kansas, at least where I'm at, are like sections at the biggest, so it's only a mile across. And funny story, last time I was in Kansas wasn't last year, year before, I think, 22. Was it last year? I don't know. I lose track. But anyways, I was taking a decoy out, one of the big clunky plastic ones, and I carried it all the way across this property where I thought no one would be or no one knew about. And I set my bow down, and part of the reason I didn't think anybody would be out there because there wasn't very many good stand trees at all. I was going to be set up in like a hedgerow with no really good stand trees, and I was going to have a ground set. Part of the reason I wanted the decoy. So long story short, I walk out there with the stupid clunky thing. I get it all the way set up. I get sat down. I'm starting glassing around, and I see a guy flagging me down on the adjacent fence line. So he was there, and like you said, well, then I felt bad because I walked on him, so I packed my decoy up and walked back out, and that was pretty much my hunt for the evening. I didn't have a backup plan that night, so yeah, it happens. What are you going to do?
Yeah, I have that happen occasionally. I mean, it happens a couple times a year. I mean, people are getting better at hunting, and public land hunters are getting better too. You go back 25 years ago, and public land was like a starter place for most people. Most people that were hunting public land, at least in my area, were your basic hunters that were just getting started. Once they got good, they'd find a property, they'd lease a property, or they'd go beg permission from somebody. And you saw really bad setups. You didn't see people putting much thought into them or whatever, But nowadays you do. People are more educated. Probably thank you, Hunting Beast, right? And Hunting Public. And we taught these guys how to do it, which is a good thing, but it does make it a little more challenging. We do run into people. And what is funny is whenever I believe I'm in a spot where nobody's going to show up and somebody does, when you wave at them or like to let them know you're there or you run into them, almost always it's followed with, "Hey, I know you. You're Dan Infalt."
Right.
And that tells me that that's probably why those people are showing up in the spots that I'm teaching them, right? That happened in Iowa last year. I found a spot on a map that looked really good, but it was really hard to get to. And I was talking to Scott Buckley about it. He goes, "Oh, I know a back access." And he showed me a way to get in there that most people wouldn't know. There was really, a difficult way. But it's still, even with the back access, I had to walk like a mile. So I get into this spot, and sure enough, a guy shows up, and then he recognizes me right underneath me. And the worst part was that spot. If you remember the video of Iowa, I got into a thermal hub, and I had a booner come by in range, but I just didn't get a shot. And it went and it bedded up on this hillside in front of me, out of sight. But I knew that was the bedding area. When they go up there in the morning, then they'd come back out. And it went up there about 11 o'clock in the morning. And for whatever reason, it was the only day I forgot my grunt call sitting on the front seat. I'm sure I could have grunted that buck in. He was rubbing trees as he went, aggressively. as he went up to bed. So I'm sure he would have just walked right into a grunt call. So I went back to get my grunt call at like, you know, after I let the deer settle down for an hour and a half. And, you know, mile back to the truck, grabbed a sandwich, ran right back out there as fast as I could, got back into the tree, and I shifted the tree over. I took my setup down and moved over to where I thought that thing would drop, you know, a little closer than where it was. And right about I'm expecting that thing to come dropping off that hill. In comes walking this guy. You know, first deer come flying out of there. I'm like, what's going on? And the guy comes creeping through there stalking with a bow. He's actually trying to kill him on foot walking. But mile back there. But that happens. I mean, just it is what it is.
Wasn't Ted
and he
or
did,
Aaron,
he
was
did
it?
what I said. No, it wasn't. No. He looked at me and he's, oh, I'm sorry. And then he goes, oh, I know who you are. You know, and he, oh, you all the time. And he's wanting to have a conversation. You know, I'm like, you know, but he ended up sorry and he left, but the damage was done. So I got up and I moved anyways. And then that giant buck was never seen again. So
It's usually how it goes with those ones.
Yeah, that's how it goes.
Yeah. All right. I think that was most of the questions. So I want to thank Ron again for coming on and sharing your story. And like I said, good reminder for everyone to be safe this season and be a good sportsman.
Thanks, Ron. Really
No
appreciate
problem. Yep. Nice talking to you guys. You guys have a good night.
All right. Well, thanks everybody. Like I said, if you get a chance, go take the survey, MSU Deer Lab. Like I said, I took it on Instagram, but I think they got it on Facebook and on their website. So check that out. Help Bronson out. And then he's going to be back whenever they wrap up the research there to discuss that. And Dan, as far as I know, we will be back next Tuesday, same time, same place, right?
Yep.
All right. Well, thanks everybody. And we will see you then.